So, I just watched the movie Cast a Deadly Spell for the first time, and I have some thoughts. Um, Cast a Deadly Spell is a wonderful movie. Well written, incredibly complex for its time and arguably for its budget. Um, Cast a Deadly Spell is really not. People are very fond of saying it's a product of its time or something of the sort. I would argue that it's more a product of the time it was trying to emulate, namely the 1940s. Uh, only it's not the 1940s we know. It is set in an alternate history in which everyone uses magic, and magic itself has become sort of an everyday phenomenon. It's like technology, only it makes no sense, and I love it. Uh, so everyone uses magic to light cigarettes, to clean their clothes, and to kill people that bother them. Um, you have practicing witches controlling the weather. You have necromancers creating and selling zombies as bodyguards to the rich and powerful. It's a whole thing. Everyone uses magic except one Harry Philip Lovecraft, not to be confused with the author Howard Phillips Lovecraft, who, as far as I can tell, did not exist in this reality, but his mythos does. More on that later. Uh, Harry Lovecraft is a private eye who happens to be friends with a detective called Bradbury. Yeah, the writers of this are kind of funny like that. Um, Harry doesn't like magic. He doesn't use it. Doesn't has no taste for it. And but for that reason, for his particular shtick, he's called up by this rich eccentric sorcerer who's looking to recover an old spell book that was stolen from him, the Necronomicon, no less. Um, but all is not as it seems, naturally. There's all sorts of twists and turns and double crosses in this, scattered all throughout. It's a really crazy movie, and it's awesome. The plot really could have been anything. Since the dialogue is just so good, delivered with such panache. Because we've got the late great Fred Ward as Harry Lovecraft, and we've got none other than Clancy Brown. Yeah, the Kurgan from Highlander, and Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob, and the Warden from Shawshank Redemption. Uh, Clancy Brown playing a devious crime lord who also happens to be another Harry Borden in this, the owner of a nightclub called the Dunwich because Lovecraft. Um, so just those two actors would have made the movie, right? Their performances, but the entire cast is remarkable. Everyone does an amazing job. It's really quite astounding. And you've got such great lines that impress upon me how clever the writers were, right? Yeah. You'll be left so far behind. It'll cost 30 cents to send you a postcard, or when the girl says, "I'm serious," and Lovecraft responds, "Then why are you wearing that hat?" Um, it's a really well written, well acted movie, and it comes across as strange and wonderful, somewhat offensive at times. Although I almost think that it's supposed to be like that to a certain extent. I think that it's meant to have this shock factor that sort of fits with the era, right? An over sexualized teenage girl, or the 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 nightclub owners committing the murders, or there's a whole bit with a gay character, which I don't think sits tremendously well nowadays. But yeah, I think in all, it's still a good movie, and it is taking itself seriously when it has to. Uh, you've got such great uses of magic throughout, despite our hero Harry not using any of it. He encounters a lot of it, as you might imagine, where he's attacked by a gargoyle, uh, animated by the sorcerer to reclaim the book once it's been found, because Harry has figured out that the book is going to be used by the old guy and by his old rival Borden, Clancy Brown's character, to summon the great old ones and usher in an era of madness and despair in which they'll be the top dogs. Um, so obviously, Harry doesn't want that to happen, and he's working against it, trying to save the virgin girl who's going to be used as a sacrifice, trying to work out all the nonsense that's going on. Harry is clever. He's a clever protagonist. He's witty and a bit rash at times, perhaps not conventionally intelligent. Um, but for the most part, he gets the job done. There's this wonderful scene in which he's sitting in a diner and the owner walks up with a bill, and and Harry looks at the bill and realizes that runes have been scrawled on it. The owner has been paid by one of Borden's people to cast runes at Harry, trying to get him killed. Whoever willingly takes the runes on the piece of paper is going to be killed by a demon. So Harry runs and grabs the guy so that whatever bad stuff happens to me will happen to you too. And they struggle, and there's this mad dash with everybody screaming, and the paper goes flying, and another guy catches it, and eventually the demon shows up and rips a man to shreds as the, the paper keeps getting passed around and around until it finally ends up in the wrong guy's hands and dead. Uh, it's probably the best scene in the movie, in my opinion, and reminiscent of the movie Night of the Demon, a black and white film, which I also love. It's also very good, and was actually took was came out in an era similar to what Cast a Deadly Spell was trying to emulate. So I definitely think it was an inspiration, and any possible reference to Night of the Demon, just in general, no matter how tangential, gets a thumbs up from me. I like Night of the Demon. Uh, but Cast a Deadly Spell, which is what we are talking about, is a great movie. And if I would say there's one place where it might fall short, that would be the ending. So Harry Lovecraft uncovers the book, the Necronomicon, and is double crossed by an old flame of his, this femme fatale singer lady who's working with Borden and the sorcerer. Um, but at the last minute, she kills Borden to take his place in the hierarchy the old ones are going to establish once they've had their sacrifice. And she's going to kill Lovecraft too, but the sorcerer intervenes, wanting Harry to see the end, right? To see the great work being done. Um, so the sorcerer takes the virgin sacrifice, who until now had been running around with Lovecraft the entire movie. He actually left her somewhat safe and sound back at the police station, but I don't think walls and doors are too much of a problem for uh, like sorcerers and crime lords who run around with zombies and animated statues. Um, but in any case, the sorcerer he takes the virgin girl and offers her up to the old ones. At which point he names quite a few familiar creatures from the Cthulhu mythos, uh, making use of some very creative pronunciations. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying I've never heard them before, which might mean anything. Apparently, his name is supposed to be Klauhul instead of Cthulhu. What do you know? Um, a rift opens up in the earth, and crawling from the depths is this eldritch horror. Really, really, really well done, I think, for the time. Really, the effects are really great at creating this slimy, ugly, Cthulhu-esque creature from your nightmares. Uh, it doesn't even touch the virgin girl though. It instead devours the sorcerer and nopes out of there, while Lovecraft and Co. look on in horror. It's only then do we realize that one of the cops at the police station had slept with a pretty 16-year-old girl, thereby making the sacrifice insufficient, and the angry old ones had the sorcerer killed for wasting their time. Uh, Harry just starts cracking up laughing since that idiot rube of a cop, that skeevy son of a gun, managed to save the world by cheating on his wife with a 16-year-old girl. Yeah, that's something. Certainly. You'll notice Harry didn't do anything there. He didn't save the girl. He didn't kill the wizard. He didn't even kill his old rival Borden. He just sort of stood there, watching as the evildoers sort of signed their own death warrants. Right, the lady who betrayed him, she gets brought in by the cops, and arrested, and the 16-year-old girl hears about how the cop she slept with is married, and that sort of ruins her affection for the man. Uh, Lovecraft does take the book, however, uh, and he becomes its keeper, knowing that since he's not a magician, he won't be tempted to use its powers. So it is, for the most part, a happy ending. I would have liked if Harry had, if he had made a mad dash for the book at the last minute, or maybe he sets up the virgin girl with a kid her own age, right? Doing it as sort of a at the end he pulls a aha, I've already outsmarted you sort of trick. Um, but he didn't do any of that. I don't know. It's a good enough movie that it feels weird to complain about anything in it. I love Cast a Deadly Spell, and while I personally would have changed the ending, I still think it's gold. I'm going to watch it again too, probably 100 times. It's yeah, that's pretty much it. It's um, go watch Cast a Deadly Spell. I promise you won't regret it, or maybe you will. I don't know. I don't know you, and you don't know me. My review could be totally out of line. Guess you'll have to see. Bye.